Good evening and welcome, Fertility Tribe. So this evening I'll be talking about the science behind how estrogen and insulin interact and why maintaining this delicate balance is essential for us trying to conceive. But before I begin, I just want to say hello. Hello, Jessica. Do you want to say
Hi.
hi? Put your camera on, say, show me your face, give me some love.
There.
Hello. There you are. How did you go with
Here
your
I am.
How did you go with your softball tournament?
It was good. It was good and it was bad because we ended up losing our first two games, which kicked us out.
Oh,
But I guess overall it was okay.
it was a
I'm
nice.
done with that. I'm done with that team now.
Oh, okay. But you had fun and you went to Vegas.
I did. Yes.
Well, that's got to be some fun there. I've never been.
Oh, yeah. It's
What
lots of
what
lights.
what was the highlight?
Met new friends.
Great, beautiful.
Yep.
That
Yep.
welcome, awesome. Yes, Ines, do you want to say hello to me? Beautiful.
Greetings, Dr. Fiona. How are you?
Well, darling, always love seeing your smiling face. How's your week been?
It's been really good, very productive. Yeah, been good.
Awesome. Oh, let's make a start, shall we? So, what I'll get you to do is just, unmute yourselves just while I do the presentation. Just stay till the end. Remember to turn your cameras on at the end of the presentation and I will answer your questions in the Q&A. So let's make a start on this topic at the heart of our reproductive health. It's a fine balance, and I think it's understanding this relationship is crucial as our hormonal imbalances that can significantly affect our fertility. So we're going to just start with the basics. The basics of estrogen. I know we hear it all the time, but it's just nice to do the reframe so we get to know this inside and out on this journey. So the definition and types of estrogen. So we've got three types. So it's not a single hormone, but it's a group of sex hormones, and there are three. So your E1, your estrone, your estradiol, which is your E2, and your estriol, which is your E3. But it's when we're working in fertility, we're mainly focused on that E2, the estradiol. It's the major form of estrogen. It's the most abundant. It's produced in the ovaries, and it's basically it's the most active and potent. All right, but estrogen regulates the growth and functioning of all your reproductive tissues. It also supports your bone health. It also influences your skin, your hair, your mucous membranes, and it's neuroprotective. It has a really big impact on the brain. But when we're talking about estrogen and fertility, we just want to think about, what does it do? Well, it plays a crucial role in ripening or maturing the follicles. It helps the follicles grow. They produce more estrogen, which in turn stimulates the development of the dominant follicle. It also thickens the endometrium, so it plays a role in preparing the lining and for potential ovulation and implantation. So it thickens the endometrium, and then it also thins that cervical mucus, making it more sperm friendly. We love that. So if we'll just look at high estrogen levels and low estrogen levels because they manifest very differently. So if we've got high or excess estrogen, this can cause irregular periods. Often we'll have ovarian cysts, mood swings, weight struggles, breast tenderness, okay, lots of headaches, acne, bloating, fluid retention. There's a lot of digestive symptoms. So it can come with constipation or diarrhea. All right. But, when estrogen levels remain too high for too long, this can play a role in conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, and reproductive cancers. On the low end, when we have low estrogen levels, when it's low, ovulation can be delayed and or the follicles might be immature. So we're just not getting that development. It can also lead to, sleep problems, mood problems, vaginal dryness. And we see a lot of that recurrent urinary tract, that irritation in the urinary tract. So recurrent UTIs, thrush, low libido, loss of bone density, okay? And then worsened if you're in that perimenopausal phase, all those symptoms can be exacerbated. But when we look at, how it supports early pregnancy, I think this is really important. Estrogen plays several vital roles in supporting early pregnancy. So first of all, it's the blood flow and the placental development. So the estrogen increases the blood flow to the uterus, and it promotes the development of the placenta. And this is going to nourish the growing fetus. It also ensures that the developing embryo receives sufficient oxygen and the nutrients through the placenta. It's got a hormonal regulation component alongside progesterone to regulate the other hormones necessary for pregnancy. But it also helps, I think this is the key takeaway, it modulates that immune response. So it allows that maternal body to accept the embryo rather than rejecting it as a foreign object. It stimulates the growth of the fetal organs. So estrogen helps in the development of the baby's organs and systems. It stimulates the growth of various tissues, particularly it's the fetal adrenal gland and the lungs, all right, which are essential for the baby's development in the later stages of pregnancy. And then we've got that, that mucus plug. So it creates that vaginous mucus protection. And so in early pregnancy, the estrogen, it promotes that production of cervical mucus, and it creates that plug to protect the uterus from infections. But estrogen, it has, plays a big role. You can see this. It helps you sleep. It keeps your vagina moist. It keeps your heart healthy. All right. It determines where fat is stored, particularly gets stored on the hips, the thighs, the breasts. It's what makes women. All right. It's the estrogen's preference. Okay. So it also impacts your appetite. So typically estrogen has a suppressive appetite effect on the appetite, which is why when there's fluctuations in estrogen, it can affect your hunger and satiety. So if you've got higher estrogen levels, the appetite tends to be decreased, while lower levels might increase it. Then, it's involved in your blood sugar regulation. And then this is where it supports the insulin. So we're going to lead into that. Now I could go on and on and on about, it's 11:11 here in Australia. Ooh, angels watching over you. I always get these little reminders on my phone, 11:11. Anyway, I could go on and on about estrogen, but you can see how integral estrogen is for fertility and why we experience so many symptoms when we have high or low levels of this hormone. Let's look at insulin. So what is it? Insulin is a hormone. It's produced by your pancreas, and its main role is to manage your blood sugar levels. So your blood glucose. So when the blood sugar levels rise after you eat, after a meal, your insulin gets secreted and is secreted, and then it transports the glucose into the cells for energy, or the liver for storage. This is where it gets interesting. Now, if the storage capacity is limited in the liver, any excess glucose is stored as fat. And then this is why I have one of my favorite sayings, and this is my quote: fat doesn't make you fat, sugar makes you fat. Remember that. So it's the blood sugar. The blood sugar levels need to stay at an optimal range, and the more sugar there is in the blood, the more insulin's released to quickly bring the levels back to normal. Now, due to our Western diet most of us consume, which contains grains, high GI carbohydrates, lots of starchy vegetables, sweet little treats, I call them cheeky sneakies, processed foods, alcohol, coffee, etc. So you can see our blood sugar levels, they're used, like I'm just seeing this across the board. They're chronically raised. They're chronically elevated. So this is where the myriad of problems begin for our fertility. So if we look at the elevated levels of insulin, they affect the pituitary gland. This is the control center of your hormone production. So then it's just like the umbrella. This is where we get started. The testosterone levels then get affected, which can then stop your ovulation. Then we've got the estrogen levels can, decrease or increase, and it can create all these metabolic and hormonal disorders. We've then got, your FSH and your luteinizing hormone, your LH, they're inhibited. All right, so they prevent follicular maturation. And then progesterone is affected. And then if ovulation occurs, the egg quality might be significantly compromised. You're seeing the domino effect. So then the elevated insulin levels might compromise, the effectiveness if you're doing an IVF cycle of your fertility medications. And then we've got the fat storage around the organs. So this is also linked to infertility, as well as metabolic disorders and obesity. And then the high blood sugar levels and high insulin are also, this is the big thing, is that they're pro-inflammatory. So they can then lead to other causes of disease like cardiovascular disease, depression, dementia. So the other issue is if insulin levels are chronically elevated, the receptor cells just say, hang on a minute, what's going on here? It's too much. And they start to become less sensitive to the responding insulin. And that's what we call insulin resistance. That's basically a stepping stone of how it all happens. Now, when you have insulin resistance, you have both your high blood glucose levels and the high insulin levels in the blood, which can have a huge impact on your fertility. And then they can cause all of these symptoms, such as weight gain, fatigue, increased appetite. But I want to just go over the key takeaways and the key signs of insulin resistance. They can vary. So that's why it gets complicated. But the common things we see is it's the fatigue, feeling tired, especially after eating, the increased hunger, frequent hunger, even after meals, often due to the body cells not receiving the glucose efficiently. Then you've got difficulty losing weight, especially around the abdomen. And that's even with diet and exercise. You've got frequent urination, especially at night. Increased thirst. This is a common symptom due to the higher blood sugar levels. And then you've got all of these darkened skin patches. And these are these dark velvety patches that often occur. They're often on the neck, the armpits or the groin. All right. And we've also got brain fog, lots of brain fog, or skin tags too. Little skin tags are often in areas where those, those patches might appear that I mentioned, neck, armpits, groin. But yeah, brain fog, difficulty concentrating. So there's going to be memory issues and, just inner fog. We've got particularly elevated blood sugar levels when the fasting blood sugar is elevated. You've also got the cravings. So lots of sugar cravings for carbs particularly, and for sugar. This is a response to the fluctuating, peaks and troughs, all right, to the fluctuating blood sugar levels. PCOS this is often characteristic, women with PCOS often have insulin resistance. It's associated with the PCOS and it leads to that irregular periods. We've got acne and those androgen symptoms of excess hair growth. And then abnormal cholesterol levels, so high triglycerides and low HDL cholesterol levels. But we've got excess hair growth. That's particularly on the chest, the chin, the lips, anywhere around the lips, the back and the buttocks, irregular periods, and then infertility. So you can see that's a lot of things to take into consideration. And you're probably all going, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. We're all doing a checklist, aren't we? All right. Okay. So what you need to remember is that, clearly being overweight can worsen insulin resistance, but it's important to remember, this is the massive big takeaway, that insulin resistance can occur at any body size. So, the lean types can actually have insulin resistance. But let's look at the insulin resistance and its effects on your estrogen levels. So we have excess estrogen production, okay? Insulin resistance often leads to hyperinsulinemia. This is the high insulin levels, and it can stimulate the ovaries to produce more androgens. So these androgens can be converted into estrogen. It's through a process we call aromatization It's in the adipose tissue, it's in your fat tissue, and the excess estrogen can cause those hormonal imbalances leading to, you know, conditions like estrogen dominance, which affects the whole menstrual cycle and ovulation. Women with PCOS, especially those, you know, tend to have higher estrogen levels, and that can disrupt that normal feedback to, you know, the pituitary gland, and then the timely release of your LH and your FSH, which is essential for ovulation. We've got the impact on ovulation. So insulin resistance, I often see it's commonly associated with an ovulatory cycle. So, you know, if you're starting to have those anovulatory cycles, we could go, maybe there might be some insulin resistance here. Okay, so the imbalance between progesterone and estrogen often results in irregular or absent periods, making it difficult for women with insulin resistance to conceive. We've got endometrial effects. So this is where we have the overgrowth. So elevated estrogen levels due to the insulin resistance can lead to an overgrowth of the endometrium, the endometrium, the lining. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. This is the lining of your uterus. It gets thick, an overgrowth. All right. And so this is not great when you are doing an IVF cycle and your lining is, you know, above your 14 millimeters. Like sometimes when we've got that endometrial hyperplasia, you know, it might be 19 millimeters thick. So that's when we've got elevated estrogen and elevated insulin resistance. So, you know, this is very common. I see this a lot when I'm preparing women for IVF cycles. So we've got to work on this. This is why the preparation is so important. So we work on your estrogen levels and your insulin resistance. We sort this out before you go into an IVF cycle. All right, because it's very difficult for implantation to occur when the lining's thick. We've also got impaired follicular development. So the insulin resistance can affect the ovarian follicle's ability to develop properly. So it's leading to suboptimal estrogen production during the follicular phase. So this is going to just impair that dominant follicle growing. It's going to delay it, or it can inhibit ovulation. And then it's just going to further contribute to more fertility issues. Let's look at solutions. All right, I've given you all these bad case scenarios, but I want to look at foods to improve your insulin resistance and support your estrogen levels. So the most important thing when I see this happening in patients, we want to literally lower inflammation. We want to stabilize your blood sugar. So this is where we do the bit of the tidy up, remove all the toxic foods. These are the, you know, the sugars, the artificial sweeteners, alcohol, the high fructose, you know, the corn syrups, caffeine and processed foods. We want to remove conventionally raised animals. They're often given antibiotics. So we want to eliminate those estrogen-like hormones that are given to the conventionally raised animals and just switch to your grass-fed and your free-range meat. It's simple. We want to also remove things from, you know, estrogen-like compounds that are found in the fish feed and polluted waters. So, you know, pick fish off, you know, these wonderful tools off seafoodwatch.org. That's a great website to just make sure you're eating the right fish. We want to limit or avoid soy milk due to the isoflavones. It's a type of phytoestrogen. It can bind to the estrogen receptors in the body. So this is where it gets tricky. So too much soy milk is so concentrated and it can literally intensify symptoms like irregular periods, weight gain, PMS, and acne. All right, so you can have soy products, but you can't have soy milk. You know, there's a rule to every rule. All right, so it's just about maintaining that balance. So we don't want too much. So we want to avoid or limit the soy milk, but you can have soy products like tempeh and tofu. We want to eliminate the xenoestrogens. This is found in your BPAs, your parabens, your sodium lauryl sulfates, your phthalates, and your triclosan. These are often in your skincare and your household cleaning products. So check your toxicities of your products. So I love the Environmental Working Group. They've got a website, EWG for Environmental Working Group.org, Skin Deep. All right, if you need that, then I can drop it at the bottom of this video. Now, they're great because they've been working since 1993, and they just protect public health. And it's just they spotlight all the, the industry standards, and they speak out against, government legislation, and they just empowering consumers. And that we're the consumers. We're in this fight together. So we want to just remove those toxins. It's really important. Toxins, I think that's the biggest thing when we're dealing with estrogen issues and insulin resistance. We need to tidy up the toxins. So eat whole, real, fresh, and just try to eat regular meals. Let's not skip the meals. All right, let's portion size. Remember, your stomach is the size of your 2 fists, and often you look at your plate. Let's not supersize your dishes. We want to just look at your palms. Remember this. That's the size of your stomach. We want to have, your macros, your balance of protein, carbs, and fats. We're not eliminating things. And we're having, all of your micronutrients and a rainbow of it, a pound of it, a rainbow of color of veggies, from reds to greens to yellows to orange, blues and purples. All right, color. Think rainbow and color. I like to do the seed rotation with all of my patients. What this does is it helps mitigates that excess estrogen, but it helps balance your estrogen and your progesterone. All right. And we want that balance, especially when we're mitigating estrogen excess, all right, and insulin resistance. So from day 1 of your cycle until mid-cycle, until you ovulate, so roughly day 1 to day 14, we do the seed rotation. So what we're doing is we have a tablespoon of your flax seeds and your pumpkin seeds, and then we rotate. We rotate after you ovulate from day 14 to day 28, if we're looking at a classic 28-day cycle, which I'm sure nobody does have that kind of cycle. But just for example, I'm just giving you the breakdown. Then we switch over to your sunflower seeds and your sesame seeds, 1 tablespoon of each. So pretty easy, isn't it? Flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, follicular, sunflower, sesame seeds, luteal. Got it? Love it. So seed rotation just means you're going to, promote estrogen production in the first half of your cycle, and then promote progesterone production in the second half of your cycle. We want to switch to natural sweeteners. So I encourage monk fruits and stevia, and then make sure you have breakfast. It's in Chinese medicine, between 9 and 11, that's the energy of the earth. And we want to get the Agni, the fire, the digestive fire, started on the fire. So when I see people that they eat 1 meal a day later in the day, they haven't started the digestive fire. And so I don't know if you've ever been camping, but when you look at a fire, you need the kindle to work, and then the fires and the sparks, and then you put the log on. So if at the end of the day, right, when the energy of the sun is low, there's not a lot of energy in the body. So at the end of the day, there's not a lot of sparks, and then you load this big log on the fire. So what do you think that's doing for your insulin resistance? Yeah, it's not good. So try to have breakfast, between 9 and 11. We want to get those digestive enzymes working, get them strong. Eat every 3 to 5 hours to keep your blood sugar levels stable, and avoid going long periods without eating. That's the secret. It's little bits, and then the body will give the body fat away. We also want to support the liver. So estrogen is metabolized by the methylation and the glucuronidation detoxification pathways in the liver. So liver support is key. It's the key. It's the key. It's the key. All right. So what other things support the liver? Or your cruciferous vegetables. So this is where, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your bok choy, your Brussels sprouts. These are all cruciferous vegetables. They help metabolize your estrogen, your E2. They contain diindolylmethane. Methane. All right, we've got bitter greens. They're great for flushing out metabolized estrogens. They're found in your radishes, your dandelions and artichokes. Sprouts, I really love the broccoli sprouts. So if you're into sprouting, get into your sprouting. They have a highly estrogen balancing quality. I love sprouts. So if we're looking at supplements to support estrogen, I'll give you a quick breakdown of, if we've got low estrogen, we might be looking at, some supplements that contain red clover, black cohosh, or dung whey we use in Chinese medicine. I like to use, if we've got low estrogen, we want vitamin E for the lining, because often, we need it for the lining. So vitamin E is my number 1 for the lining if you've got lining issues. All right, because remember, it's the estrogen that actually builds the lining. So other things, vitamin D, vitamin B, your omega-3s, your magnesium, zinc, for example, DHEA, it's a precursor to estrogen. So often we will use DHEA to support estrogen production, particularly when we're getting into that perimenopausal phase, or if you've got those hormonal imbalances. Just know DHEA is not right for everybody. You've got to really watch it because it can go up and down really quickly. So you need to be testing, and you test it with your testosterone and your SHBG. We want to see those markers alongside your DHEA because you don't need to stay on it for long. And it's, it just, if you get left on it, if you have too much DHEA, then it can go the other way. You've too much DHEA or too little DHEA, it's going to affect your follicular development. High estrogen. So if I'm using supplements for high estrogen, like if it's really like serious estrogen dominance, I love DIM because it just, boom, there you go. It gets rid of it. Now, I know broccoli and all of those things contain DIM, but we can supplement with diindolylmethane, all right? And it's really good for that serious estrogen dominance presentation. If I'm seeing that there's an estrogen, if somebody's got like a low methylation, like I might say, all right, well, we're not clearing things out of the body, so they recycle back in. So I often use calcium diglucarate. What I love about calcium diglucarate, it helps clear the estrogen that's ready to be excreted, so it doesn't recycle back, and it doesn't affect your systemic estrogen. So calcium diglucarate is my go-to. I like going to that first because DIM can drop your estrogen too quickly. And remember, we don't want to lose all of your estrogen. So be very careful if you're supplementing with DIM. You need to be under medical supervision with DIM. That's the big takeaway. Calcium diglucarate is a bit safer. So if you're finding you've got some of that high estrogen dominance stuff going on, go the calcium diglucarate around 500 milligrams twice a day. That's usually a starting dose that I will give my patients. But then other things I might look at is Vitex. It helps regulate production of estrogen, and it mitigates, progesterone. It mitigates the balance there. All right, so it helps kind of balance everything out, especially if you've got PMS or you've got those irregular periods associated with your estrogen dominance. I might look at adding in some milk thistle for your liver. If you're not, methylating properly, some maca, probiotics, getting your gut right, and then looking at your B vitamins, particularly B6 when it comes to high estrogen. B6, B12, folate. They're the 3 B vitamins that I look for. Supplements to lower insulin resistance. So let's look at my number one favorite one is berberine. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. All right. I love berberine. So if you've got insulin resistance, get on berberine. It's better than metformin. In some studies, they've shown it just improves the insulin sensitivity. It lowers the blood sugar. It's great for belly fat. All right. So yeah, 500 milligrams of that, usually 2 to 3 times a day before meals. The main thing with berberine is you don't want to exceed about 1,500 milligrams. Alpha lipoic acid, I like this because it improves your insulin sensitivity. It enhances your body's ability to utilize glucose. We want about 600 milligrams up to 1,200. So I dose it. I start off with a smaller dose, usually 300 to 600. See how your body is adapting to the ALA. All right, because sometimes you can have some gut sensitivity. So you don't want to go super dosing with the alpha lipoic acid straight up. Start with 300 to 600 milligrams. Do that for a couple of weeks, and then you can super dose it. You might do 600 to 1,200 then, but divide it into doses. So usually split it up into 3 doses. Magnesium, I love this. Magnesium deficiency is common with people with insulin resistance. So we want to supplement with around, 200 to 400. Most of my products have around 350 milligrams, but yeah, anywhere from 200 to 400 milligrams daily to improve that insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism. Your chromium, the chromium picolinate in particular, it's known to enhance the action of insulin and insulin sensitivity. So anywhere from 200 to 1,000 micrograms per day, and it's in that form, the chromium picolinate, for better absorption. So just make sure you've got the chromium picolinate. Myo-inositol, if you have PCOS and high androgens. So don't just think, oh, I'm just going to throw my own inositol into the mix. I have some patients just think, oh, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Make sure you have high androgens, because if you've got low androgens and you take myo-inositol, you can bottom out your androgens, and we need your testosterone. So make sure, that you do need it. It's not for everyone. It's another one, but it's great if you've got PCOS, okay, where we have high androgens. Often this is the case. So usually around 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams or 4 grams daily of that. Cinnamon, now, it can help with the blood sugar level, so you can, sprinkle it on your porridge. You can add it into your cacao. Like I have my patients that are, particularly if there is some insulin resistance, I have I've been talking about this to a lot of my patients this week. Bone broth, cacao, some plant-based milk, pinch of salt, a little bit of, maple syrup or some honey, but adding some cinnamon, and voila, for insulin sensitivity and blood sugar levels. It's such a great drink, and it's so fertility friendly. Now you can use store-bought or make your own bone broth, but this is a great drink with cinnamon. 2 other things, omega-3s, vitamin D. So we know, usually the doses of those, 1 to 3,000 milligrams of your omega-3s, and it helps reduce the inflammation, improves cell membrane health, and it can help the insulin action. The vitamin D levels, like we often see in clinical practice, that low vitamin D is associated with insulin resistance. So check your serum vitamin D levels, and we want to correct it. If you have a deficiency, then superdose it, 5 to 10,000 IU. But, normally I just sit at around 2 to 5,000 IU, depending on what serum levels you have. But that's kind of the sweet spot for fertility. The overall takeaway, when you do have estrogen imbalances and insulin resistance, we want to reduce your stress. And I have all of my patients to, stabilize the blood sugar and reverse insulin resistance. We need to tackle the chronic stress. It's just so crucial. So if we look at stress, the elevated cortisol, it blocks the estrogen receptors, and then that's the overall signaling of estrogen, and then it suppresses the progesterone production. Just know this, that your bodies are always going to prioritize stress over your hormones. So let's de-stress and let's prioritize the hormones. So look at ways to do that: meditation, deep breathing exercises. So I teach a lot of pranayama, but we've got so many apps. I was talking to my fabulous patient Tara yesterday, and she's just said, oh, I've got this app, just download it. She said, oh, here are all the breathing exercises, box breathing, and then she showed me the 4-7-8 breathing, and then the pranayama breathing, the alternate nostril breathing. And I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, breathing through the straw, all these breathing techniques that I love and teach to my patients. She had them on the app and it explained it to her. So all these apps now are just so savvy. So use these apps to teach you deep breathing exercises, pranayama breathing exercises. These are the yogi breathing exercises. But look at just even belly breathing. Breathe into the lower part of your belly. Let the abdomen rise and fall, and just feel the softness of your Buddha belly, your mama belly. All right, we want the belly to be soft. We don't want a strong core for fertility. We actually want softness here. So I get you to release the tension in your belly at night and do your lower diaphragmatic breathing. We want to create some me time. Use your essential oils. I was talking to Jess about geranium, and we've been having a love affair on the geranium. It's the love and connection essential oils, but find those relaxing essential oils that are safe for fertility, that you can diffuse or you can put into the bath, but have a relaxing bath, throw in your oils, throw in your Epsom salts. This is where we have to really take care and prioritize me time over stress. Let's look at TCM. This is traditional Chinese medicine. Remember, I'm always looking at your fertility through the lens of Chinese medicine. So if we're looking at insulin resistance from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's often seen as a result of the spleen qi deficiency, and it's usually combined with dampnesses and phlegm accumulation. So when the spleen qi is deficient, so the spleen in Chinese medicine, it governs digestion and transformation of your food into energy. We call it qi. So then when the spleen's weak, it can't effectively process the food, and it leads to the dampness. This is a form of internal moisture, and phlegm is what this is all this terminology. But I love using the terminology so you get familiar, and then it blocks the flow of qi and it hinders the metabolic function, and then that increases the insulin resistance. So we have liver qi stagnation. This is another pathology. So the stress and the emotional imbalances lead to the liver qi stagnation. The liver is involved in how energy moves around your body. So when that's hindered, we don't have that free energy flow of qi and blood, of energy and blood, particularly to the reproductive organs. And that stagnation is what can affect the menstrual cycles, particularly ovulation, reducing your fertility. If I'm looking at estrogen imbalances through the lens of Chinese medicine, then, we look at it through like the liver qi stagnation. We look at it as damp heat accumulation. So if I'm looking at some treatment approaches for insulin resistance, I'll be looking at some formulas like, Shenling Baijusan, Lejunzatang, Fangfeng Tongshengwan. These are some formulas that tonify the spleen and improve digestion and resolve the dampness. If I'm looking at some of the points that I would use in acupuncture, we'd be working on the stomach and spleen points. So Sanyin Jiao, it's beautiful. I love spleen 6, 4-finger breadths above the inside ankle. You can feel it. It's so amazing. We use this point to support the digestive health and improve metabolic functions, and tonifies the blood and the yin. It's great for the follicular phase. So it helps regulate insulin and glucose levels. So stomach 36, we often will use that to support it. That's just below the knee. It's on the stomach channel. That's your runner's shin. I usually hammer this point. So when I'm teaching my patients, we hammer this point. If we do warm-ups in Qigong, we use our hands on stomach 36 like a timpani, and it stimulates the qi and blood. So it's supporting that digestive health. For estrogen dominance, so I'd be looking at soothing the liver. We often use herbs like shangfu, chaiyu, and we'll use formulas like shaoyaosan. All right, this has helped to also balance out the cycle. This is a very famous formula. But if we're clearing damp heat in Chinese medicine with estrogen dominance, I'd be looking at herbs like Wang Bai, one of the yellow brothers, Longdan Sao, all right? And then I'd be looking at Longdan Shugantang, right? This is especially good for hormonal imbalances like PCOS. So this is a classic formula for clearing the damp heat. Then we've got formulas like Bajentang. I love Bajentang. It's one of my favorite formulas. Balances the qi and blood, can help regulate estrogen and progesterone. It's particularly good when there's estrogen dominance accompanied by the blood deficiency. So Bajentang. Now, obviously, we start with a base, but then we itemize it and we add in what you need based on your differential diagnosis. But it's just nice to get a bit of an education on how Chinese medicine works, because it's really powerful. So some final thoughts before I open up the Q&A. This is the best part, right, of the talk, but let's just to wrap up in closing. You can see there's this relationship between estrogen and insulin. It's just a powerful reminder of how deeply interconnected our bodies are, especially when it comes to fertility. But the empowering truth is we can address these imbalances, right? We can address them through the nourishing foods, through the targeted supplements, when you know what you're looking for, right? And thoughtful lifestyle changes. Even if you can just start to prioritize some me time over your stress, just restoring that restoring that harmony and balance. It's just about, that's what we need for our hormones to flourish, to rejuvenate, and for our fertility, and create that fertile environment for life to flourish. So thank you. But just know one last thing, with the right tools, I think that's the biggest takeaway. With the right tools, there's always a solution, and we can find that path to optimal fertility, and it can become clearer when you have the information. Let's open up the Q&A. Who wants to talk to me or ask a question or share? Are there any shares?
Hey, Dr. Fiona.
Hi, Jessica.
It's Jessica.
Hello.
I'm outside walking, but
That's
I wanted to ask, is there anything that we can see within our temperature chart to signify if we have low estrogen or high estrogen?
Yeah, well, you might have a short follicular phase. That's a classic thing. If you've got low estrogen, right,
Mhm.
then your follicular phase will be short. If you've got estrogen dominance, you might not be ovulating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and there can be fluctuations. All right. So yeah, absolutely. The temperature can fluctuate. So it can be high or low. I mean, it's not standard, so it's hard to go into those ones. But they're the things that we tend to see on the BBT.
Okay.
If you've got estrogen dominance, what you might see on your chart is lots of egg white, egg white, insulin resistance, egg white, estrogen dominance. There's a lot of lots of, lots of cervical mucus with estrogen dominance and insulin resistance. Does that help?
Yeah,
Yes,
it
Dr.
does.
Okay, great. Ines, go for it.
Yes. So what was that alternate for the metformin again? You
Berberine.
said, how do you spell that and do you spell it?
B, B for bat, E-R-B,
E-R,
Erine. Berberine.
berberine. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah, because I know this was some time ago, but that's the medication they tried to put me on, the metformin.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, berberine.
And
Like they've been
okay,
doing a lot of compare and contrast it to some of the studies. I don't have them on me, but I had a look at the comparable studies to metformin, and they were showing that the berberine actually improved the insulin sensitivity and lowered the blood sugar levels much better than the metformin.
okay, I'm gonna do that one. And do you sell that?
Yeah, not in my store. No, I don't.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the suggested amount for the berberine?
Yeah, 500 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day before meals.
And you said that's for insulin resistance, right?
Lowering if you've got belly fat and yeah, very good.
Okay.
Just don't
Okay.
exceed around, just don't go over 1,500 milligrams. We just, stay in that optimal zone. So you might want to just start with 500 milligrams twice a day.
Gotcha.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tara, talk to me. Hello, beautiful.
Hi. I don't know if I have any questions. I'm trying to digest because I'm sorry that I'm still working. So I'm
Fine. It's just nice to say hello. I just saw your face there and I was like, surely Tara's got a question or a share.
well, I could share about the berberine. I absolutely love berberine. I've been using that in the calcium that you recommended every day.
Right.
You could find a great brand on Amazon, 500 milligram. There's one that I really like that it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, my boyfriend has diabetes, so this is like a talk that's obviously near and dear to me because I'm trying to manage my health, but then I also am constantly mothering him because of his diabetes. I guess it's just a share, not so much a question.
Right. I love the share. The shares help. They really
Yeah,
help. They really
because
help because then we've got live experiences of people that have tried it. Not like I had one of my new patients and her husband got on the call going, just don't tell me. Give me data. Like I want to know why. And then we have real life examples and experience of people using these products and
yeah,
then they work, which is great.
yeah, because I guess the one thing I could add is there is another supplement that you kind of talked about a couple supplements. There's one that I've been encouraging him to take in addition to the berberine. It's a combo between berberine and cinnamon and a couple other things. Um,
Yeah.
and have him take that and berberine. And then I don't know if you mentioned this, but checking your sugar, even if we're not diabetic, the one thing like I'm thinking about just getting a kit myself just to see how I respond to certain foods. So even if we're not diabetic, checking our sugar within 90 minutes of eating a meal, you could see how that meal responded, how you, yeah, you spelt it right, berberine, exactly. You could check to see what your sugar is 90 minutes after a meal and see how that meal that you just ate, how you responded to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because even, you know, even though we're not diabetic, at least we hope we're not diabetic, you know, we still could get sugar spikes and it's not good for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important. I've got this great book that I got out from the library. It's The Glucose Goddess.
Yeah. But there was
Interesting.
something that you shared that got me thinking that maybe I shouldn't be taking it. My astronol.
Myo-inositol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing that.
Have you? Okay. Yeah.
So I've been kind of just doing it to manage potential blood sugar spikes and stuff, but
yeah.
taking it.
Really, not in the air. So just pull up your labs. I'm more than happy to review them for you, and we can just have a quick look at your androgens. Yeah, and we just want to make sure it's the right thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's one thing that I was like, oops, I've been taking that. Yeah.
Well, this is why these conversations are really potent. They're powerful for us to share what we've tried. You know, sometimes we self-medicate and we think we've got it right on Dr. Google, but not necessarily all the time. There can be a lot of information because we can go down rabbit holes because we just think, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to take that. That sounds great. And we're trying to do the best for us. But sometimes it can be harming. You know, we do need the testosterone for that follicular maturation and development. So we don't want to lose that. It's still a key marker in your reproductive hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Darcy, do you have a question? No? Stella, welcome. Do you want to have a question? Do you have a question or a share? Maybe not. Okay, ladies. I'm going to thank you all for joining me again. And it's always wonderful to have these conversations because you don't realize even the shares or the questions that you ask, people might be afraid to ask those questions, and those shares and those questions, they all empower us on this journey. So I will see you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Stella. See you later.